Hello there. Today I want to talk about an interview question that sometimes people have difficulty answering, and it's the one about tell me about your worst or your best boss. So, obviously, it's a lot easier to talk about the positives, isn't it? If we have a great boss, easy to answer that question usually. People will say, my boss was at this particular company, and the reason this boss was such a great boss was because they trusted me, they gave me autonomy to do my work. We had a good relationship, we met regularly. But what about that worst boss question? First thing I want to caution you about is don't ever mention people's names. The world is too small. People know people, and your interviewer or your hiring manager could know the person you're talking about. So don't ever mention people's names. Perhaps simply mention when I worked in, the motor industry or when I worked in the banking industry, I had a particular boss. And these were the kinds of things this boss did. And it could be anything like the boss micromanaged, which we all know doesn't breed feelings of trust between you and that boss. So what you want to do is you want to list why that person was the worst boss, but don't overkill with information. Give a couple of examples of why it was a challenge. But the next thing you want to do is articulate how you overcame that challenge, if you overcome it. What did you do to make the relationship better? Did you perhaps request a coffee meeting with your boss to try and get to know that person on a different level? Did you perhaps dig deeper to see if there were other things on that person's mind that was perhaps driving certain behavior? What did you do? Did you initiate a weekly or a fortnightly or a monthly meeting to track and report your progress? In other words, to alleviate certain issues of distrust or micromanagement. What did you do? It always comes back to how you handle it. Or did you become a victim? Because here's the thing you want to avoid. You want to avoid conveying yourself as a victim, as someone who goes around blaming everyone, blaming only the boss. And the boss is the only one to blame. And I didn't do anything wrong. And I did X and I did Y, but I could never get through to the boss. Now, there are times where no matter what you do, you can't get through to that person, you know? And so then there's points of escalation. You might have to articulate that. Say, these are the steps I took. It didn't improve the relationship. In the end, I had to find another way. And sometimes your other way is through escalation. Sometimes your other way is to work out a way to move into another department. And sometimes your other way is to actually leave the company because you don't want to be in a toxic environment, especially with someone who's your boss, because you dealing with this person on a regular basis. So be honest, but always try to have a positive outcome and outline steps that you took to improve that relationship before you pulled the plug. And whether the plug was escalation, was moving into another department, or in fact, leaving the company. Articulate your steps, the positive steps you took, and the outcome of that. That's how you answer that question without disparaging someone. Because as I said, the world is small and people know people. So take ownership of the relationship and share what you did to improve it. That's how you answer that tricky little question.